One bad decision, one dangerous stunt. That's all it took to turn routine filming into the most tragic YouTube deaths ever recorded. These aren't just accidents from content creation. They're reminders that online, the pursuit of views can become the ultimate price. It was November 22nd, 2015, when 22-year-old Elliot Parker made what would become his final YouTube video. The Best Buy employee had built a modest following of 3,200 subscribers through his methodical approach to reviewing budget electronics and DIY modifications. His girlfriend, Sarah, often worried about his casual attitude towards safety when tinkering with electrical devices. But Elliot's confidence in his technical knowledge usually put her concerns to rest. Working from his converted garage workshop in Portland, Oregon, Elliot had planned to test a suspiciously cheap power inverter he'd ordered online for just $29. The device promised to convert 12-volt DC power from car batteries into standard 120-volt AC household current, making it perfect for camping or emergency situations. What made this particular inverter interesting to his tech-savvy audience was its incredibly low price compared to name-brand alternatives. His garage workshop was a typical DIY setup with basic electrical outlets, concrete floors, and no specialized safety equipment. Recent rain had seeped under the garage door, leaving the concrete slightly damp. Elliot wore his usual filming attire of jeans and a cotton t-shirt, treating the session like any other product review. The video began normally, as Elliot unboxed the inverter and explained its specifications. He connected it to a 12-volt car battery and successfully tested small devices like phone chargers and LED lights. Everything seemed to be working as advertised, which surprised him given the device's bargain basement price point. Wanting to demonstrate the inverter's limitations for his viewers, Elliot decided to push it to its maximum capacity by connecting a 1,500-watt space heater. This would show his audience exactly when and how the cheap device would fail under real-world stress testing. The moment he plugged in the space heater, the poorly manufactured inverter's internal components failed catastrophically. With inadequate insulation and no proper grounding, the device became a deadly hazard. When the circuits overloaded, the inverter allowed 120 volts of alternating current to energize the metal housing Elliot was holding. The shock caused his muscles to seize, locking his grip on the device as electricity traveled through his body and into the damp concrete floor, completing the circuit. After several seconds of continuous current, his heart was forced into a fatal rhythm disturbance, sending him into ventricular fibrillation. Burn marks were later noted on his hands where he had gripped the energized housing. The unit eventually cut out, but only after the current had already driven his heart into cardiac arrest. By then, Elliot had collapsed beside his equipment. His roommate, Dave, returned home from work at his usual time, around 6 in the evening. When he called out to Elliot and received no response, he checked the garage and found him unconscious on the floor. Elliot's camera, a battery-powered DSLR running on a separate circuit, was still recording, capturing the aftermath in silence. Dave immediately called 911 and attempted CPR, but Elliot showed no pulse or breathing. Paramedics arrived about 12 minutes after the emergency call and worked for over 40 minutes in repeated efforts to restore his heart rhythm, but the electrical shock had already caused irreversible damage. The medical examiner later confirmed the cause of death as cardiac arrest brought on by electrical shock. The faulty inverter had no safety certifications and violated multiple electrical standards, explaining its dangerously low price point. Elliot's final video became a cautionary tale used by electrical safety organizations to demonstrate the hidden dangers of unregulated electronic devices, serving as a stark reminder that some bargains come at too high a cost. It was April 25, 2016, when 19-year-old Madeline Brooks ventured into the Olympic Peninsula forests for what would become her final foraging expedition. The culinary arts student had built a dedicated following of 4,800 subscribers through her enthusiastic videos about wild edibles and sustainable cooking. Her bubbly personality and genuine passion for natural foods had attracted viewers interested in connecting with nature through food gathering. Madeline worked part-time at a local organic market while pursuing her culinary degree. Her parents supported her YouTube channel, but had grown increasingly concerned about her tendency to forage alone, especially as she ventured into more remote locations seeking unique content. That spring morning, she drove to a familiar area where she had previously found morel mushrooms and wild onions with experienced guides. Her boyfriend Jake, who usually accompanied her, was homesick with flu and couldn't join her for the filming session. Despite his absence, Madeline felt confident. She had joined several guided foraging trips in the past, but often relied on visual memory rather than detailed training. She carried her usual equipment, a wicker basket, sharp knife, field guides, and camera gear, but no emergency communication device. The area had experienced unusual weather patterns that spring, affecting plant species timing and appearance, making identification more challenging. Her video began with typical enthusiasm as she walked through the forest, identifying familiar plants like wild garlic and dandelion greens. She successfully located several edible species she recognized from previous guided trips, building confidence as she filled her basket. The fatal mistake occurred when Madeline discovered a cluster of pristine white mushrooms growing on a fallen log. Based on their appearance, she confidently identified them as oyster mushrooms, a species she had harvested before with guides. However, unusual spring weather had caused these destroying angel mushrooms to fruit earlier than typical, making them easily confused with edible varieties. Destroying angels contain amatoxins, some of the most lethal compounds found in nature. These toxins are not destroyed by cooking and cause no immediate symptoms, making them particularly dangerous for inexperienced foragers. Around noon, Madeline prepared a small meal using her foraged items, cooking the mushrooms on her portable camp stove while explaining their supposed mild flavor to her viewers. She consumed approximately 2 ounces of the cooked destroying angels during her tasting segment, praising their pleasant taste. The video concluded normally, with Madeline expressing satisfaction with her successful foraging trip. She packed her equipment and drove home in the early afternoon, completely unaware of the deadly toxins now circulating in her system. That evening, approximately 8 hours after consuming the mushrooms, she began experiencing severe nausea, vomiting, abdominal cramping, and diarrhea. Initially dismissing these symptoms as possible food poisoning, she called Jake for advice. He urged her to seek medical attention immediately. Jake drove her to the emergency room that same evening, where doctors initially treated her for standard food poisoning. However, when she mentioned consuming wild mushrooms, blood tests revealed elevated liver enzymes, indicating severe amatoxin poisoning. Doctors attempted aggressive treatment, including activated charcoal, liver support medications, and standard antidotal protocols, but her condition continued to worsen. The amatoxins had already begun destroying her liver cells, and the damage was irreversible. Madeline died 72 hours after ingestion from acute liver failure caused by amatoxin poisoning. Her camera footage helped doctors confirm the mushroom identification. Her tragic death became a catalyst for supervised foraging education, serving as a reminder that nature's beauty often conceals deadly dangers. It was April 15, 2017, when 19-year-old Grace Whitaker made the fatal decision to attempt one of the most dangerous eating challenges on the internet. The college sophomore studying hospitality management had built a dedicated following of 4,800 subscribers through her food challenge content on YouTube. Her energetic personality and willingness to attempt extreme eating challenges had attracted viewers who enjoyed watching competitive eating content. Grace worked part-time at a local restaurant in Nashville while building her channel, often incorporating spicy food content into her videos. Her bubbly enthusiasm and genuine reactions to extreme foods had made her popular among viewers, though her parents had grown increasingly concerned about her willingness to push physical limits for content. Her boyfriend Jake usually supervised her more dangerous challenges, providing safety support during difficult attempts. However, he was out of town for a family emergency, leaving Grace to film alone in her apartment kitchen. Despite his absence, she felt confident proceeding with her planned challenge. That April afternoon, she had planned to attempt the infamous Carolina Reaper challenge, featuring the world's hottest pepper rated at over 2.2 million Scoville heat units. She had ordered authentic Carolina Reaper peppers online from a specialty hot pepper farm. Grace had researched the challenge extensively online, watching dozens of videos of other content creators attempting similar feats. However, she underestimated the serious risks associated with consuming such extremely hot peppers, focusing more on entertainment value than safety concerns. She set up multiple cameras in her kitchen to capture different angles of the challenge, ensuring maximum viewer engagement. Her setup included close-up shots of her reactions and wide shots showing her body language. The video began with Grace's typical high-energy introduction as she explained the Carolina Reaper's record-breaking heat level and her preparation. She displayed the pepper prominently, describing its appearance and the measurements that made it the world's hottest variety. The fatal mistake occurred when she consumed one whole Carolina Reaper pepper, which immediately caused intense burning sensations throughout her mouth and throat. The extreme heat triggered violent coughing and gagging as her body attempted to expel the irritating substance. Within minutes, she began experiencing severe nausea and started retching uncontrollably. The intense burning sensation and panic caused her to hyperventilate while simultaneously trying to drink large amounts of milk to neutralize the heat. During a particularly violent bout of retching and coughing, Grace began to choke on a combination of pepper remnants and milk. The choking episode was exacerbated by her panicked state and the ongoing burning sensation in her throat, which made it difficult for her to coordinate her breathing. Unable to clear her airway effectively, she became increasingly distressed and disoriented. The combination of choking, panic, and inability to breathe properly caused her to lose consciousness as her brain was deprived of oxygen. Grace collapsed in her kitchen, with pepper remnants and milk blocking her airway. Without immediate medical intervention or someone present to perform the Heimlich maneuver, she was unable to restore normal breathing. Jake became concerned when Grace didn't answer his repeated phone calls. He contacted her neighbor and asked them to check on her welfare. The neighbor found her unconscious in her kitchen several hours later. Emergency responders arrived quickly but were unable to revive her, as she had been without oxygen for an extended period. The medical examiner determined that death was caused by asphyxiation due to choking on food particles during the pepper challenge. Her final video became a cautionary tale about having supervision during extreme food challenges. It was February 3rd, 2018, when 24-year-old Sienna Collins made the fatal decision to explore an underwater cave system without proper training or equipment. The freelance graphic designer had built a modest following of 1,750 subscribers through her travel vlog channel, which focused on budget backpacking and cultural experiences throughout Central America. Her artistic eye and genuine curiosity about local cultures had earned her a small but engaged audience of fellow travelers. Sienna had been backpacking through Central America for 3 months, funding her journey through freelance design work. Her parents had supported her trip, but worried about her tendency to take risks for content, especially around water activities where her swimming skills were far from professional level. She arrived in Tulum with her travel companion Desmond, a 28-year-old British backpacker she had met in Guatemala. They had bonded over their shared love of off-the-beaten-path destinations and authentic local culture. The famous cenotes of the Yucatan Peninsula had been on Sienna's must-visit list. These natural sinkholes filled with crystal-clear fresh water offered spectacular underwater scenery, with ancient stalactites and limestone formations creating cathedral-like chambers beneath the surface. At Cenote dos Ojos, Sienna rented basic snorkeling equipment, just a mask and snorkel, from a local shop. She was not scuba certified and had no breathing apparatus beyond simple snorkel gear. The rental operator offered guided tours with certified cave diving instructors, but Sienna declined to save money, confident that her swimming abilities would be sufficient for exploring safely. The cenote had clear warning signs about the dangers of entering underwater caves without proper training. Cave diving requires specialized skills due to the unique hazards of overhead environments, where direct ascent to the surface is impossible. Water temperature in the cenote was comfortable with excellent visibility, making the underwater caves appear deceptively safe. The crystal-clear water created an illusion that the cave systems were shallow and easy to navigate. Sienna began filming her cenote experience by showcasing the stunning clarity of the water and explaining the geological formation to her viewers. She and Desmond spent time snorkeling in the main pool area, filming the impressive stalactites and underwater rock formations. The fatal decision came when Sienna noticed a partially submerged cave entrance that appeared to lead to another chamber. The opening looked inviting and seemed relatively shallow. Without proper cave diving training, she had no way to recognize the dangers of overhead environments. Taking a deep breath, Sienna swam into the underwater tunnel. From the entrance, it looked like a short passage, but once inside, it extended farther than expected. Within seconds, she found herself in an overhead environment with no direct way to surface for air. Panic set in as she turned around to swim back, but the entrance seemed farther away than expected. Her breath was running out, and panic made her exhaust her limited air far too quickly. Sienna attempted to swim back toward the entrance but became disoriented in her panicked state. She inhaled water while desperately trying to reach the cave opening, causing immediate drowning and loss of consciousness. Her body sank to the bottom of the cave passage. Desmond became concerned when Sienna didn't return after several minutes and called for help from other tourists in the area. Local dive rescue teams arrived with proper cave diving equipment. Rescue divers located her body in the passage and recovered her later that evening. The medical examiner determined that death was attributed to drowning, with panic and disorientation inside the cave environment as contributing factors. The incident served as a tragic reminder of the deadly risks cenotes present to untrained swimmers. It was September 8, 2016, when 21-year-old Wesley Jordan began what would become his final gaming marathon stream. The college dropout worked part-time at GameStop while building his gaming channel focused on marathon streaming sessions and endurance challenges. His dedication to extremely long gaming sessions had attracted 4,200 subscribers who enjoyed watching him push the limits of human endurance through gaming. Wesley lived alone in a small apartment in Austin, Texas, and had been struggling with depression and social isolation since dropping out of college. Gaming had become his primary coping mechanism and his only real source of social interaction. His girlfriend Chloe had broken up with him 2 weeks earlier, citing his obsessive gaming habits. Wesley had been preparing for weeks to attempt a 48-hour continuous gaming marathon to raise money for charity and gain more subscribers. He had adjusted his sleep schedule and stocked up on energy drinks and snack foods, treating the challenge like an athletic event. His setup included multiple monitors, professional streaming equipment, and a comfortable gaming chair positioned in his bedroom. Wesley had been consuming 4 to 6 energy drinks daily for several months, building up a dangerous tolerance to caffeine and other stimulants. He announced the marathon stream on social media, promising viewers he would not leave his chair except for bathroom breaks. The challenge was designed to showcase his dedication and prove that he could compete with larger streamers. Wesley began his marathon stream in the evening with high energy, interacting enthusiastically with his growing viewer count. He maintained intense focus for the first day, consuming energy drinks regularly and eating only snack foods while playing various popular games. As the hours progressed into the second day, he began showing signs of fatigue, but pushed through with additional caffeine and stimulants. Viewers began expressing concern about his appearance, noting his pale complexion and increasingly erratic behavior as he approached the 40-hour mark. Wesley had consumed numerous energy drinks containing high levels of caffeine and other stimulatory compounds during the marathon. His body was experiencing the cumulative effects of extreme sleep deprivation, excessive stimulant intake, and prolonged sedentary positioning. Well into his second day of streaming, he began experiencing severe chest pains and shortness of breath, but dismissed them as anxiety. His prolonged immobility over nearly 2 days had allowed a clot to form in his leg. When it broke loose and traveled through his bloodstream, it lodged in his lungs and triggered a pulmonary embolism. In the early morning hours, Wesley suddenly collapsed in his gaming chair, gasping for air and clutching his chest while his stream continued broadcasting live. The embolism blocked blood flow to his lungs and forced his heart into cardiac arrest. Viewers immediately began calling emergency services after witnessing his collapse on the live stream, but Wesley lost consciousness within minutes as his brain was deprived of oxygen. Paramedics found Wesley unconscious with no pulse or breathing. They worked extensively attempting resuscitation, but the massive clot had caused irreversible cardiac arrest. The medical examiner determined that death was caused by pulmonary embolism due to prolonged immobility, with contributing factors of stimulant toxicity and severe sleep deprivation. His death became a watershed moment for the gaming community, leading to guidelines for healthy streaming practices and mandatory break requirements for marathon streams. It was December 12, 2017, when 23-year-old Isabel Hayes made the fatal decision to test unknown cosmetic products without proper safety precautions. The makeup artist worked at a high-end salon in Miami while building her beauty YouTube channel, focused on affordable makeup tutorials and product reviews. Her expertise with color matching and technique had earned her a dedicated following of 3,600 subscribers who appreciated her professional quality results on a budget. Isabel lived with her roommate Jessica in a trendy Miami apartment where she had converted the spare bedroom into a professional filming studio. Her bubbly personality and genuine enthusiasm for helping others achieve beautiful makeup looks had made her popular among viewers seeking accessible beauty advice. Her parents were proud of her entrepreneurial spirit, but occasionally worried about her tendency to test products without researching their ingredients. Isabel had always been adventurous with new cosmetics, trusting that if products were being sold, they must be safe. That December afternoon, she planned to film testing weird makeup from Wish, featuring extremely cheap cosmetics ordered from overseas sellers. She had spent only $47 on 15 different products that would normally cost over $300. The products had arrived with minimal labeling, most featuring only Chinese characters with no English ingredient lists or safety warnings. Many lacked standard FDA approval markings, but Isabel assumed this was simply due to their low-cost nature. Isabel had sensitive skin, but had never experienced a severe allergic reaction to cosmetics, only occasional minor irritation. She had not patch-tested any of the products, planning to apply them directly to her face during filming. Jessica was at work, leaving Isabel alone for the filming session. She set up her usual equipment with professional lighting and multiple camera angles. The video began with Isabel's typical enthusiastic introduction as she unboxed the products and explained her testing methodology. She successfully tested several items including lipsticks, eyeshadows, and blushes, noting their surprisingly decent quality despite the low prices. The fatal mistake occurred when she applied a liquid foundation containing unregulated ingredients not approved for cosmetic use. Within 20 minutes, her face began showing signs of contact dermatitis with redness and mild swelling. She continued filming, attributing the reaction to normal sensitivity, and applied a concealer from the same manufacturer. The concealer contained high concentrations of preservatives that triggered a severe allergic reaction. Over the next 30 minutes, her face began swelling dramatically, and she developed hives across her neck and chest, while her breathing became increasingly labored. The allergic reaction progressed to anaphylaxis, causing her throat to swell and restricting her airway. Isabel attempted to call emergency services, but her voice was barely audible, and the call was never completed. Within minutes, she collapsed as her airway closed, and her blood pressure dropped, sending her into cardiac arrest. Jessica returned home from work that evening and found Isabel unconscious on her studio floor with severe facial swelling. She immediately called emergency services and attempted CPR, but by then Isabel had already been unresponsive for some time. Paramedics worked extensively attempting resuscitation, but the prolonged oxygen deprivation had caused irreversible damage. The medical examiner later confirmed the cause of death as anaphylactic shock due to cosmetic allergen exposure from unregulated products. Her camera had recorded the entire reaction, providing crucial evidence about the dangers of unregulated cosmetic imports. These tragic deaths are just the beginning of YouTube's darkest moments. Click the next video for more shocking creator stories that will leave you questioning everything about online fame.